What's going on, guys? Jesse504 here, and today I am bringing you all my predictions for where mons are going to end up in the draft scene for the new Legends of Arceus mons. As usual with stuff like this, spoilers ahead, I'm covering up the Hissuian version of Arcanine right now, but I will be getting rid of that text pretty soon, so click off if you're trying to stay not spoiled. But with all that being said, let's just get right into it, and as usual, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. But yeah, and so let's get right on into it. 3, 2, 1. I'm getting rid of it. Okay, cool. So we see the first mon that I'm really going to dive into is Arcanine Hisui. If you guys are interested in seeing a Little Cup analysis for this for some reason, let me know in the comments down below and I'll give my Little Cup thoughts. But we see Hisui and Arcanine. The abilities are at this moment, I believe, just placeholders, but if these are the abilities, that is very cool, especially for this Hisuian version of Arcanine keeping Intimidate. I don't see why it would lose Intimidate, but I think keeping Intimidate will allow it to maintain good viability. Fire Rock, I think, is a somewhat unfortunate type, especially for a draft scene type of thing, where you will have just all sorts of ground moves, water moves being very common. I think Hisui and Arcanine will struggle to sort of stay alive like regular Arcanine does. But with boots, it'll still be fine, and I think it'll just have to be used more in an offensive role, maybe a 3 attacks. Morning Sun. Obviously, we don't know the move pools either, so that's another iffy sort of thing. But I'm just assuming certain moves. For instance, Hisui and Arcanine is a rock type. I think it'll be a fine stealth rocker. I think it'll learn stealth rocks. And then assuming it gets fire coverage plus rock coverage, which it should, and then keeps some of Arcanine's pretty solid coverage with close combat, wild charge, play rough, I see this mon being a great physical breaker, and it's still bulky enough to take hits. 95, 80, 80 is certainly bulky for the mons, for the times when you're trying to be able to run it bulky, which you certainly can. You just got to be even more wary of coverage options that rock typing isn't really helping you with staying alive defensively. And all in all, I think this mon will find its value around 8 to 10 points, depending on move pools, stuff like that. Obviously, if it's obtainable, or if Nat Dex leagues want to run it like the Showdown leagues. But up next, we will see Hissuian Electrode. No stat changes from regular Electrode. I think it'll be fine. I don't see it going up too expensive, but Electrode plus Grass is a solid type and stab combination. So I think that Hissuian Electrode will definitely be a bit more pricey than Electrode, especially if it keeps static. I think that'll be a big one. I think that could be an ability that it might lose just because it's wooden now, so maybe it loses static. And if it does, I don't know if it'll be able to maintain as much viability, but I think just that typing combination and fast screens will do it favors. As long as it has stab moves, it should be fine, because it can scare out all the ground types, so it can volt freely. And if it somehow for some reason keeps a way to hit grass types, I don't know what it would get to hit grass types, maybe a fire move or something. I don't think that would make much sense, but if it does, then offensively this mon could be good, but it's just not very strong. But you'll be able to run it bulky pretty much every week. I see with this sort of stat distribution, Hissuian Electrode finding itself in the 4 to 6 point range. I'm leaning more towards 5 or 6. Up next is my favorite mon to come out of Legends Arceus, that being Overquill. I think Overquill will be great, but first, let's just give a little shout out to Hissuian Qwilfish. I think that mon will be able to find viability with the Eviolite, and perhaps find itself in the conversation, because regular Qwilfish is already pretty much a 7 or 8 point mon. I sort of see that Qwilfish Hisui, if it keeps spikes, Intim, and toxic spikes and stuff like that, I sort of see this mon slotting right over where Qwilfish is, and maybe with the Eviolite, maybe even 1 more point, because it also only has 1 weakness to the ground typing. So I very much will see Hisui and Qwilfish finding itself in the 8-9 point range, But Overquill, I think, will be an interesting mon to keep in mind. It obviously can't run the EVO sets, but I think this mon will still find good value around wherever Drapion finds itself, usually like 11 or 12 points, if it keeps access to spikes. I think this mon has a pretty similar distribution to Drapion, maybe a bit more offensive, but I also think that this mon has an interesting niche in rain if it keeps Swift Swim. It could lose Swift Swim because it's no longer a water type, but I could totally see it keeping the Swift Swim, especially after seeing it a little bit in game. I could see it keeping that, but I think I want to say Overquill will be like an 11 or 12 point mon if it keeps spikes, T-spikes, stuff like that. It will be a dark without knock, probably, which will be a bit unfortunate for it, but I think that I think Overquill will be very solid in that range, and I'm definitely going to try to draft it when I can. Up next, we will see quick shout out to Hissuian Sneasel. I think it'll just find itself right pretty much close by regular Sneasel in like the 7-ish point range. Poison Touch is, I think, a cool ability for a mon like this, because obviously Weavile doesn't really get much use out of its ability there, neither really does Sneasel. Inner Focus is also cool for the Intim side of things, but I think Poison Touch will be nice for like this sort of stab combo, and yeah, I can see Hissuian Sneasel slotting in like the 7-ish point range. But then I think the main mon to really think about is Sneasler. I hate its design so much, and I think it might even slot up by Weavile points rise. 130 attack stat, 120 speed stat. I don't think this mon can really slide that low. Imagine like Toxicroak with like good sort of offenses and great speed tier. I think this mon will be able to slot super high if it can keep good. If it can keep just like really any way to pressure like ghosts and stuff like that. I think that'll be like its main sort of struggle to get through with stab moves, but it should get some sort of dark moves, and then Poison Touch will obviously be great for it. And if it keeps like some sort of utility, not keeps, but if it gains like some sort of utility, like because it's a poison type now, being able to throw up like a toxic spike or something, I could even see that being like a potential for Sneasler, but I don't think it needs to do that to get good viability, as long as it gets like... Alrighty, sorry about that. Yeah, like I was saying, I don't think Sneasler needs toxic spikes to have that type of viability. And I could see it slotting up by Weavile, maybe a little bit lower. I could see it climbing up to that 13 to 14 point range, I think, for Sneasler. That's what I would tier it at initially, given not knowing much about its move pool, but if it has a very diverse move pool, it obviously has the potential to go up. Up next is Lilligant. I think Lilligant will have potential good viability if it can keep Sleep Powder. I think that'll be a big one for it, because now it is above that 100 speed tier. 70, 75, 75 isn't the bulkiest, but if you can put things to sleep, I imagine it's got those legs. It'll have some sort of dance move. I think it likes to dance. I can imagine it getting Swords Dance. That's kind of like what I'm alluding to. And then Grass plus Fighting is a pretty solid offensive combination. I don't know if it'll get any way to hit bulky poisons like Zen Headbutt or something like that. And if it doesn't, I think that would be holding Hissuian Lilligant back from the super high tiers. But just Hustle plus Strong Attacks can always be scary, and Chlorophyll, giving Sun another dimension, I think could be cool as well. But mainly I'm just more focused on like those setup sets, or those like strong hustle. You've got the speed tier, you can be Hustle Band, or even like Hustle Scarf, stuff like that. And it kind of looks like it could get U-turn. I'm not saying that it will, I'm not saying that it should, but it might be able to get U-turn. If it gets U-turn, even higher, obviously. But I think that Hissuian Lilligant will find itself in the 10 to 12 point range initially. Because it's also an Edgequake resist. I think it'll find itself around Breloom tier. So yeah, 10 to 12. Up next, we've got the Basculin. I can't really talk too much about it. EVO Basculin. I don't think it would use it very much, but what it could do is be available in Little Cup for about 2 days, maybe even less, and then just get instantly banned. And so, yeah. But the Bastia Legions, they're pretty similar, just physical attacker versus a special attacker. I do think that the male one will probably be better. I don't know if they're going to tier them separately. I imagine they would, and I imagine they would end up pretty much in the same tier. I could see them being tiered pretty highly. Relatively bulky water in the HP stat with 120 base HP, I think will be pretty solid for Bastia Legion. And then that water plus ghost offensive typing should be able to clean through most teams if you keep like Ice Fang or even just like 3 water moves like Liquidation, Aqua Jet, Flip Turn, and then Poltergeist. If it gets Poltergeist, if it gets Shadow Claw, even like Phantom Force, I think could have some usage. But I think like Choice Scarf, Assault Vest, Choice Band type sets, I think that will be the best for it. I think Bastia Legion male will find itself also pretty up there. I am saying like 11 to 12 points. And then Bastia Legion female 10 or 11 if they're even tiered separately. But yeah, I do think the male is going to be a bit better because I just think the physical moves will be stronger. But if it doesn't get physical ghost coverage and is reliant on Shadow Ball, I think female will be better. But I hope it does get some physical ghost move. Up next is Hissuian Zoroark. That normal ghost typing is fantastic offensively. And Illusion's kind of a wonky ability, but I think that Hissuian Zoroark has better potential to use it than regular Zoroark, but I don't really see it slotting, like, tier-wise, really that far away from Zoroark. I think it's more of a gimmick than anything else, but still that strong offenses. I think that Hissuian Zoroark, they're normal plus ghost. I don't know what kind of coverage they plan on giving it. Maybe some ice stuff because you find it in, like, icy areas, but I don't really know if it'll need that. I think that it'll end up finding itself... I would like to say in that like 10, maybe 9 point range of a good offensive mon, but just not all the way there yet. Like in terms of like the best offensive mons. Up next we've got Braviari and Hissuian Braviari. I wish they gave Hissuian Braviari. Obviously these abilities aren't final yet, but if it had competitive, I think that would be cool. But having Sheer Force on a Psychic Flying with like Air Slash or Hurricane and then Psychic Stab, I think this Braviari has potential to go crazy. It's relatively bulky. If it, I assume it'll have Roost, and just like a Boots or Roost 3 attacks or Calm Mind 2 attacks type set, I think could go crazy with this Braviary. So yeah, I think I have faith in this Braviary being a relatively high tiered mon. Normally we see Braviary around like 8 or 9 points. I could see this Braviary getting a bit more up there, potentially even upping towards like 11, maybe 12 points. I think I'm saying that for a lot of mons, but that's just kind of like where I'm seeing things. With these new forms and evolutions, I don't think any of them are completely unviable yet. So I'm all aboard this Hissuian Braviary train. I think it has a lot of potential. Up next is Weird Deer. I think that Weird Deer it's going to be an interesting mon. It's not relatively bulky, but it has some good bulk with Intim. Frisk is also a cool ability. I think it runs Intim most games, Sap Sipper a couple. But it's strong offensively. It's just slow. I think it won't be able to generate too much value. It's slow. It's not the bulkiest. I could see it as like an interesting normal option, but I think it's worse than like Meloetta of the same typing. Probably I would put it around 7 or 8 points. Up next is Hissuian Avaleg, and it pains me to say it, but I don't think this mon is going to end up very good. Ice Rock is a terrible typing, terrible. It'll be interesting as like a physical attacker, but like it'll die to like a Vacuum Wave or like some just like random move that it finds itself very weak to. It can maybe chew up physical like moves that it's weak to as long as they aren't fighting or steel, but there's a reason why Aurorus isn't that good, and it's just because this typing isn't very good. Sturdy might give it some utility. It's a bit faster than regular Avaleg, but it has less Spadaf, so I don't really know why they needed to do that. I would much rather like if this thing gained Spadaf as opposed to lost it. I don't really see why they would need to do that, but it seems like a fine to good physically defensive mon. Issue is it's just so weak to very common typings. I can't see it going above 5 points. I think it'll just slot around where regular Avaleg is. Up next is a mon that has generated a lot of hype, and for good reason. I don't know if it's generated that much hype, but I'm excited for it at least, and that's the Hissuian Gudra. I think as long as this mon keeps Gudra type coverage, where it has pretty much good coverage of like a lot of types, this will be a good mon. That typing is just fantastic. I don't know if you like your steel not resisting fairy and dragon. I think you need to draft like a good fairy, or maybe have like a secondary steel. But like, this mon has a lot of potential. I think it's going to end up very good because it got even more physically defensive as well as keeping that monstrous Spadef stat. Loses a little bit of HP, loses some speed, but gains 30 in the Fizdef. I think is a good trade-off for it. Overcoat's kind of a useless ability, but Sapsipper and Gooey are both solid. Yeah, I just see Hissuian Gudra keeping good viability. I want to say around 13 points for it. I think it'll be great. Up next is Cleavor. Cleavor is in an interesting spot. I think that it'll be good, but its typing is just going to be rough. It's a bit stronger than Scizor, a bit faster than Scizor, but less bulky. And its typing is also not good. I think it will find itself maybe in like the 8-point range, where it's like a mon that has some good potential, but just can't do it all quite yet. Sheer Force with like if it gets Lunge and Rock Slide could be cool, but I don't know if it'll be that good. Especially because it doesn't. Scyther will have Roost, so to be able to keep Roost. But I don't know if Cleavor will be that good. Up next is Ursuluna. Ursuluna is going to be great, I think. Guts plus 140 base attack plus Stab, Earthquake, and Facade. Yeah, that'll be crazy if it keeps that. Bulletproof is a niche ability, but cool. But when you're already immune to Shadow Ball, you don't really need it for too much. That's just the main move that comes to mind when I think Bulletproof. There's obviously like some other niche applications for it too. It's just a niche ability in general. But yeah, main thing is I think this mon's going to be really strong, and if Ursaring can run Eviolite, that mon might get very strong as well. But yeah, it not having Quick Feet will be fine. I don't know if it can even outspeed all the way up to like base 100s with Quick Feet, so that's not terrible. But yeah, I'm willing to say Ursuluna is going to be a great mon. Like, I could even see it up to 14, 15 points. Maybe I'm overhyping it, and I don't know the coverage very well. But if it gets something for the Steel Flyings, it'll be in a fantastic spot. Those are like the main mons that I see stopping it right now. But if it gets like, if it keeps Fire Punch or something like that, it'll be great. Next is Hissuian Typhlosion. I don't really see it changing too much from regular Typhlosion. Having that secondary Ghost Stab will be nice for it. And if it gets like any more coverage, even better. But as long as it can still spam the eruptions, it'll find itself around where it was. I think maybe even a bit better with that strong Ghost typing. But I don't see it going too high. I think like 6-7 points maybe. Syrian Samurai, same deal. It's a water, but like it's gonna be probably a dark with no knock, stuff like that. I see it not that expensive. Samurai is already not great, and it has pretty much the exact same stats, just with attack and special attack a little bit less, and also a little bit less bulky, but a little faster. Yeah, I don't see it doing too well. Maybe like 3 or 4 points. Hissuian Decidui. This mon I think actually has potential to be at least decently priced. If it keeps some effect from its signature move in-game, I think it'll be cool, but even if it doesn't, just Grasp plus Fighting. I think it'll be worse than a Hissuian Lilligant though. I think it's going to be around 7 points, maybe 8 points, maybe 9, somewhere in like the 7 to 9 range, around Verzion. Probably, but Roost plus that typing should be good as like an Edge Quick Resist. It's just, I don't really know how much more it can do. Up next is Enamorous, the new genie. I'm not sure where exactly to rate this mon. I think it'll just depend a lot on if it can abuse Contrary. I doubt they give it Fleur Cannon, but if they give it like an exclusive Fairy or Flying move, then it could be great. If not, it's probably just going to be Superpower. And it's looking like a special attacker, so probably not the greatest for it to be doing that type of thing. But if it is able to get like a fairy move like that, and flying stab that it can run, I think it'll be great, but I could see it just not getting any good flying stab other than like fly. So that'll be interesting, but like I think it has potential to be up there. I'm gonna say like a 14-point Pokemon. And then Enamorous Therian, I think that it can be, it's going to be bulky. It looks bulkier than like a lot of the other forms, but Overcoat is kind of a useless ability. The other three all have very good abilities, especially Lando and Torn. Thundy has still got a pretty okay ability, and Volt Absorb that can at least come up. Overcoat doesn't really come up unless you're like playing Breloom. This is like the best Breloom counter there is. But yeah, I don't really see this Mon going too crazy. I could see it. It still has fantastic stats, which is something to keep in mind. It's still going to be bulky and it's still going to be strong. So I could see it a bit like around 12, because I don't think it keeps, or I don't think it gets Roost like the Genies. So I just don't see it like breaking those types of trends and getting moves like that, which leads me to believe it will not be that expensive, or not that expensive, but it won't have the stuff like that, so I'm going to say like 12. And then last but not least, we just got these Ubers. They're going to be Ubers. They're going to be banned. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, until next time, Jesse504 out. Peace.